Hi everyone, it's Juliet here, and I'm sorry I have kind of messed it up. I'm sorely missing Marion at the moment, and poor Julia, she's kind of lost in the wilderness trying to get back in because I threw her out of the studio. So sorry, Julia, if you're there, all is forgiven. Please come back. Just check in again. So she says it won't let her in. So, quel jour, as they say, quel jour. So I didn't realize when we exited the studio that it would end the event. So hopefully Julia will be able to pop back in soon. And meanwhile, let me just double check yet again if this is now going live. Is live. It says it's live. Okay, so that's good. I am now live myself, so that's all good. So this is so tedious for you to watch, but that's good. So if you are wanting to set up your own live stream, just know that it can be complex and you're not a failure if you don't get it right. So I'm just going to send the link again to Julia. So. So anyway, is anyone? It says we have 3 people watching. Is anyone here? So I'm waiting for Julia to join me. Is there anyone here? I do feel sorry for other people trying to do this that have the same problems as I'm having at the moment. So, okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Well, that was a, okay, hello, Abigail from Scotland. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. So we have Abigail. Thank you, Abigail, for being here. And we have Renee. Hi, Renee, welcome. And we have Nicola. Hi, Nicola. Hi. Thank you, everybody, for being so patient. As I explained, when we started, I got a message that Julia wasn't showing on the live feed. So I thought we had to exit the studio and restart, but it finished the event. And then I had to find a whole new link. Julia, were you in a panic? What happened?
I was just patiently waiting for the way through, just like any good midwife.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's good skills to have, eh? So I didn't even get to the point of introducing you. So let's wipe the slate and we're starting all over again now. So this is Juliet here from Glastonbury. And we're starting a whole new series. And Julia, we're inviting as the first guest, and Julia Duthie is an amazing midwife. But so much more than that, because Juliet is not Juliet, I'm Juliet. I've got such a scrambled brain today, Julia. It's just been non-stop all day. So Julia is part of our Council of Elders. And she's well trained in just being able to be patient and find her way through. Do you want to share a little bit more about that? What that's like for you when you're waiting to find your way through?
Well, I would say it's kind of like, because I'm a very kinesthetic person, so my body will say, yes, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right, and then when I get the right way through, it's like it may be an idea or someone says something, and it's just like a key fitting in a lock, and then suddenly the key turns. which may only be an idea that's popped in, but then it's like, oh yes, this is the best next move.
That's wonderful. So it's like you're really attuned to your gut feelings. Does it come from your gut, or does it?
Well, yes, it was interesting. When you said gut, my body went, no, it's not gut. So if it wasn't my gut, I guess it would be my bones, maybe.
Okay, that's interesting. I've heard people say their wombs and their hearts, and maybe all of us tune in a different way. We have Jack here from, he's just come back from Dartmoor. So Jack, you'll be very interested to know that Julia actually lives on Dartmoor, and Jack has been doing 3 weeks wild camping on Dartmoor. So if you want to say hi to Jack, he's a very loyal joiner of my my little attempt to have a broadcast here. So
well, I'm very envious. Wild camping, and probably the best 3 weeks of the year.
Yeah. So you do like to get out on the moors yourself, don't you, Julia?
Yes, between babies, as in between being on call for a birth, Dartmoor is the place that I go to resource myself. So this August, I didn't have any births lined up. So I've been walking on Dartmoor, swimming in rivers, sitting under trees, and it feels like that fills up a tank inside of me that gives me a resource that takes me through the winter months, or takes me through being on call maybe for two or 3 months in a row, 24/7.
Yeah.
Could be what I need to give space for.
Yeah, so that really deep connection with nature that you find when you go out on the moors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then like any tension drains off, any emotional build up. It's like getting plugged back into my true self, actually.
Yeah. So Jack, how did you find 3 weeks on the moors? That's quite a big thing, coming all the way from the north of England. I imagine Stafford's in the north of England. I've never been there. Or maybe I have. So Jack says, and it's written in pink, and I can't read it, and I'm usually reliant on Marion with her eyes to be able to...
I can see. Yeah. What part of Dartmoor am I living? Yes. South Dartmoor.
So where were you, Jack? Which part of Dartmoor? So whilst Jack's thinking about which part of Dartmoor...
So my local bit of Dartmoor is very near Piles Copse. Piles Copse is one of the ancient oak woods. And I just love being there. And because it's quite a long walk to get there, there's not too many people, so it just feels very a really good place to settle one's nervous system.
Yeah. And so we've been doing how many years? Several decades of trauma training together, haven't we?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. It's a very long time ago since we met.
2 decades.
Yeah, and it was on Dartmoor, wasn't it? Was it on Dartmoor we met or not?
Pass.
I can't remember which that was. It
was probably in Somerset, just round the corner from you.
Yes, I did that, the Earth Spirit Centre. So both Julia and I are cranial sacral practitioners, although we trained at different times. And we actually crossed paths when we signed up for Carlton Terrace. What was the name of the course? Do you remember? Because there were several courses, several trainings we did.
No, I don't remember the name of the course, except I do know that it covered birth and all the stages of birth and conception and many parts of our embodiment journey, and how imprints from back then affect our life in the now.
Yeah. So we did all that training together, and then there was a second training that we did, wasn't there?
Yes, diving more deeply into, well, basically what came from my mum, what came from my dad, even what it was like resonating with the sperm and resonating with the egg.
So we did something called the sperm journey. So we tracked the traumas that happened in our experience as being sperm, because this is in our body members, this is in our cellular members. As crazy as it sounds, it's all there. And also our experiences as eggs, the egg journey. So it sounds pretty wacky now, doesn't it, when we talk about it? Or what's your experience?
My experience is it feels very normal to me. It will probably seem exceedingly wacky to my siblings.
Yeah. I remember asking Carlton when we were doing the sperm journey, and I said, I'm finding this really hard to believe, Carlton. Are you telling me that this afternoon when we do this exercise, I'm really going to access the memories of the sperm? And he said, not at all. It's normal that people do, because he'd written a little book called Sperm Journey. And he said from thousands and thousands of people have done this work over decades, starting with, was it William Emerson that started the work, or it goes really much further back?
William Emerson is pretty foundational.
Yeah. So he said there's so much anecdotal material of people actually having this experience, having these experiences once they start the regression work. And this is the foundation of the work, is that we assist people to go into their body memories to access this. And then all sorts of things come up once people start to access. And it's like, although I had a degree of disbelief then, it's like later on I had a client that was suffering quite severely from trauma and he was coming to see me for quite a few years, and it was very badly incapacitated. I used to see him once a week, and then we started exploring, from Carlton's work, we started to explore the sperm journey. And it was so specific that when he got, do you remember when the sperm is entering the egg, there are two layers. There's the outer membrane. I'm sure you know this way better than I, Julia, because you've gone much more deeper into it. There's the outer membrane, and then is it the vitelline layer on the inner membrane?
My body remembers it, but my body doesn't remember words. So
no,
you can you can be the expert on that, Julia.
Yeah, so I would try to be the expert, but I might be getting it sorely mixed up. But as Julia said, it's not really the words; it's actually what happens. And he had such a profound reaction because we set up the regression, and as he was, because we set it up with cushions, the two layers, the two membranes of the egg that the sperm has to pass through, and in that process of entering the first layer, then the head of the sperm starts rubbing against the membrane, and there's enzymes released from the head of the sperm that starts to dissolve away the membrane and also dissolve away the sperm's head. So it's profoundly shocking because the sperm totally dies, loses its identity at that moment of time. And as this proceeds, so will the egg die as well, because the membrane of the egg opens, the head of the sperm dissolves away, and then the DNA from the nucleus of the egg and the DNA from the head of the sperm then line up, join together and replicate. And then that's the start of the journey of the blastocyst that then becomes the human embryo and ultimately fetus and ultimately born as a human being. But this moment of shock was really profound for him. And it made although I started off to Carlton saying, I'm not sure if I really believe this, it's like witnessing this client of mine go through that process and the huge amount of shock that was in his body around this actual moment of transition. It was incredible. And I'm sure, Julie, because you've done so much more regression work than I did, because you trained with Ray Castellino, and did you train with William Emerson as well?
Yeah, yes, a little with William as well. Mm-hmm.
So you must have witnessed way more than I have around these.
Probably, yes, and initially, what would arise in doing birth regressions was actually the birth. And as time would go, because I was born by forceps and because I was, like, according to the doctor, I was 3 weeks late, and wrong gender because my mum really, really, really wanted a boy. So, which of course is why I was 3 weeks late, because I was in there going, don't want to come out. So they had to drag me out. So those layers were the first layers that I had to look at and resolve the shock within them. And then I found myself, as I was doing more regressions, it would take me back further and further.
Yeah. So I remember Carlton saying that it's best to teach from the point of birth, because that's the most recent memories, and then gradually go back and back, which is what we did with him over the duration of this training. So we went right back to, we did the sperm journey and the egg journey, and then we went further back, didn't we, which was actually the point of the soul entering the egg or the sperm. And I remember that point was massively shocking for me as well. That was the most shocking of the whole training, was that point of entry of the soul into the cells, because how I understand it is that the soul is vast, and that coming down into embodiment into a physical body where you're very, very constricted, from being this huge, I don't know how to describe it. How would you describe the soul in your experience?
Well, the closest I can get to it is when I am in this ancient oak wood, and I've been spending time just like being with the trees until I get to a place of feeling like I'm connected with everything. So that and as well as that, there's the an invincible sense. Well, it's not like, oh, I'm invincible, but there isn't anything that's other than me. So
Yeah, that's interesting. So so when we access, when we're in touch with that soul quality, when we're in touch with ourselves at that soul level, there's a feeling of omnipresence, maybe.
Yes. I see Jack's asking a question.
Okay.
About what stage of the process does the soul enter? And basically, like, as we come from source, and then we choose our parents if that's the way we perceive it. And as Juliet was describing, it's like we have to condense in order to move into the egg, move into the sperm. And maybe if we were moving into really enlightened beings, there might not be, despite that condensation, there might not be nearly so much shock. But Juliet was describing it being a very shocking experience. And when the shock is really bad, the soul lifts out and hovers. So people who can see auras, like sometimes they'll notice the soul of the baby even hovering in a woman's aura for 3 months before she gets pregnant. But then when the pregnancy happens, people who can see the aura of the baby can sometimes see it going in and going out and going in and going out. So there isn't a specific time when it goes in, except different people who do regressions would have completely different experiences.
Yeah, I think everybody's experience is unique. But as you say that, as you're saying that, I'm getting shivers over my body, which is very interesting as you describe this thing about the shock. I mean, Carlton always used to say a soul cannot tolerate the shock, so it will always withdraw from that point, and that we might spend a whole life becoming embodied. It's like the soul doesn't just come in and stay there, but we have this physical body. I mean, Thomas Hugel talks about this as well, the physical body, the process of embodying on the earth plane and building relationships, and also how much the soul is able to actually settle within the physical body and may just be going up and down, in and out the whole time. And it's only when there's security and safety in relationship through good, really non-stress parenting, good relating and so on, that the soul can settle when there's a degree of safety. And I think this thing about trauma describes, if we're massively traumatized, then we're disembodied. Our soul's not able to really settle in because there's too much shock in the system.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and healing trauma is an embodiment process. Did you were going on because you went to Carlton's workshops outside, in Germany, didn't you, or somewhere else, which was specifically on embodiment?
Yes, when we went to workshops in Germany and in Switzerland, we were doing more of the journey from source down to the body, and and noticing where the shock places are, and then like redoing that journey over and over to help the shock to integrate.
Yeah, because Peter Levine talks about in trauma the condensation of experience. In the moment of a traumatic experience, everything gets locked together in the psyche, within the brain, and within the body. And that healing trauma is about also unpicking those parts, which means it's a very, very slow process where you really, really stretch it out. And when you describe redoing it, you're doing precisely that, aren't you? You're giving more and more space to that experience so that the shock can begin to dissipate and more memory can come in.
Yes. If the shock can be witnessed very spaciously, then it will integrate. Yeah. And there's lots of methods of doing that.
Yeah, lots of different approaches and methods to do that. Yeah. So for anyone that's interested in this work, Julia and I did that training, or those trainings together, and Julia also did way more trainings with the great Ray Castellino. You were flying to America, weren't you, to do that training with Ray Castellino?
Yes, over 3 years, toing and froing to California. So wow. Greatly honoured to have completed that training, as he's no longer on this plane.
Because he died?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, late last year.
Oh my God. Oh, that's a shock. I should never meet him then. Well, not in this lifetime.
Not in the flesh, but through me, yes.
Through our experiences. I really miss us doing our workshops together.
Well, let's do some more.
Yeah, so Julia and I were running for a number of years. Was it 3 or 4 years, something like that? I can't remember now. We were running pre- and perinatal trauma workshops, which is working with a small group, and we would work on each person's prenatal trauma, whether it was birth or sperm journey or whatever came up, whatever was important. So to kind of frame that experience is like what happens in your prenatal trauma then keeps repeating itself in your life as a pattern. I mean, that's the nature of trauma anyway, is that it will keep coming up time after time as a pattern that's just very similar each time. And to get down to the roots of it, you might have to go back all the way to your sperm journey. So that's what we did when we were running those workshops. They're very powerful, weren't they?
Yeah, they're very powerful, and the interesting thing is they're intention led. So the participants would come to a workshop with an intention, which could be to do with health or money or curiosity about different part of their birth. And just by being with that intention and by slowing down and by being with what arises in the body, we find out, oh, yes, we're going to the birth. Oh, yes, we're going to being an egg and feeling invaded by a sperm coming along. Oh.
Yeah, precisely. So that's where you start, is from the intention. Is like, what is it that's not working in your life at this moment in time, and how would you like to change that? Because we would do a repatterning. So on the one day we would access the information. Did we give them 2 turns each, or did we access? You can do either. You can access and repattern in the same. No, I think we did it all in one, but you can do that in 2 separate things. But the important thing is the repatterning. We did some beautiful ones around actually feeling welcomed at birth, didn't we?
Yes, yes, yes. Because for so many, well, like me, hiding in the womb for an extra 3 weeks until my time was up, and the doctor said, "Hey, come on, if she's not born by tomorrow, we're going to induce." So quickly, the labour gets going, and I know that was me. So to make a repatterning, like if I was making a repatterning now these days, I could make a lovely, luscious womb by having lots of soft cushions around and people all around, and then have someone standing in for my mum and have my mum saying, "Hey, I would really love a girl. I'm really looking forward to having a girl." And given the gender issue in my family goes back more than one generation, because my mum was meant to be a boy in a very big way. So I would probably need someone being my grandma as well, or my grandpa, all saying, "Oh, we're really looking forward to a girl. I'm really looking forward to a girl." Then my body would start to feel completely different. So instead of having a feeling of hiding in there and bracing against being discovered and fear of disappointing, like parents, grandparents, instead, I would notice my nervous system settling. I would notice my body settling. And given sufficient space and time, I would then notice that in my body is an impulse to move forwards. And it's such a blessing for the clients if they get to that place where they feel the impulse to move forwards, and it's coming from love, and it's coming from wanting to move into life, and it's coming from like moving into a place where there's people welcoming one exactly as one is so different to so many other people's birth experience, where they're having to get born because the doctor's saying, "Oh, if they stay in any longer, they're going to die," or forceps or 1-2s or cesarean rushing.
We've got to end the shift now, so this baby better get born. Or whatever, we won't go into the politics of birth because that's a whole nother thing. But it's quite interesting how we can actually reshape and repair that damage that's been done at birth by setting up that intention of what is it that you would like? How would you like it to be? Because the brain can't differentiate between the actual experience and how we imagine it. So this is consciousness. It's that this applies to so many things. And I've talked on this live feed with Marion about that consciousness, imagining the kind of life that you want to be and to have and to step into that life. I think that's really key for us at the moment, because we're so stuck in this fear narrative. But if we can actually imagine how life around us could really thrive, and how we could thrive and live accordingly, then it would be very different. And this is what we do with the repatterning. So do you remember those, sometimes, Julia, how emotional people were when we did the repatterning?
Oh, absolutely. It's like they'd really found themselves again. They'd really connected with some place that had been lost. And they looked so much more embodied, and so like they really found their voice. Yeah.
Yeah, and Carton always used to talk, because he showed us that video of the cesarean section, Matus or something, in Mexico City, because he was working in Mexico City, and this child that had been born by cesarean section, and at 18 months or something couldn't crawl, didn't do anything. And he did the repatterning with his child. And I saw, we watched the video. Do you remember that?
Not clearly enough to talk about it.
So Carlton would describe how people, when they did the repatterning, that there might be this moment or 5 minutes or 10 minutes afterwards where it's like the brain was actually reconnecting in a different way neurally. The neurons were connecting up in a different way, because now they were connecting around this new experience. And the repatterning that had happened with this cesarean section child was to get him to move through the birth canal, which had been set up with cushions. And his parents were down the other end of the tunnel, the cushion tunnel, that were encouraging him to move. And he did actually move through the tunnel. And that was his embodied experience at that time, of being able to move of his own volition, which he hadn't been able to do before. Because in cesarean section, when a child's taken out of the womb, and then they don't have the experience of initiating, because isn't it true, Julia, that a baby in the womb actually initiates the birth process?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, they don't know exactly what happens, but they do know it's the baby. And from personal experience of having regressed back, I know that it was me who got the birth started.
Even though you were pulled out with forceps, that you did.
Yes, I got the birth started, and then there was some clock ticking. I think the doctor needed to get to his surgery, so they did forceps.
Yeah. So when we are born by cesarean section, we don't have this experience of going through the birth canal, and the baby is actually very active in that process. So if you're born by cesarean section, then that's not embodied for you, that movement through the birth canal, and there can be neurological effects, according to Carlton. So what I was
neurological and psychological, like talking from point of view is from someone who's been pulled out by forceps. Help can get interpreted as another pair of forceps that's going to stop me from finishing something on my own. So it's taken a long time to heal that, so that, oh yes, help, that's lovely, rather than, oh no, help means someone's going to stop me from doing what I want to do on my own.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? So these are the kind of psychological blueprints of trauma. So Marianne is just making a comment. Will you be able to read it if I put it on the screen, Julia?
I can see it. It says, This whole perspective is a stark contrast to the current abortion discussion in the US, which has been set aflame recently by a new fetal heartbeat law in Texas. I don't know anything about that.
No, do you want to tell us, Marianne, what that new law is? That would be very interesting if you shared that. So, yeah, so Carlton is saying basically that this look comes over a person's face where the repatterning is happening after the regression has happened. And I've certainly seen that sometimes in our workshops, Julia, where people have these amazing repatterned experiences of their birth, and then they're crying, they're really emotional, but they also get this look in their eyes where something else is going on with there.
Yes, it's like there's been a neural pathway that one has got the habit of using, which might say, which might be some decision that we've made from the way that our birth was, like I'm stuck, or moving forwards is painful, or like someone who needed his cesarean, maybe when they were moving forwards, they were tightening their cord, and as they were moving forwards, they were running out of air. So then there's the danger of moving forwards into life. And then when that is repatterned, able to get a felt sense experience of moving forwards without a sense of oxygen being cut off, and without the sense of someone having to rescue them with like the surgeon's knife, then that makes a new pathway in the brain. And with practice, that's the one that the mind and the psyche will choose.
Yeah, so they say that neurons that fire together wire together. So if you had a traumatic experience in the beginning, then that sets a pattern that you keep going over and over again, and it's deepening the neural pathways. But if you can set up an entirely new experience, and it's really profoundly emotional in doing that, and you've had, like the little baby, managing to move through the imitation birth canal, that you have that, and now it's an embodied experience, and the neurons can completely rewire in a different way. So there's so many different things, factors around birth and further back, that become a template then for the problems that we have later on in life about feeling disempowered, that there isn't enough, that I'm not loved enough, I'm not good enough. What other kind of negative self-images do you come across in that?
I was getting distracted, actually. I was reading Mariana's reply.
All right, so should we look at that?
Yep.
Okay,
so it says, Texas will no longer perform abortions if the fetal heartbeat can be detected. I think that's about 6 or 7 weeks these days. Click on her next message. I see there's another bit more there. It saddens me that the wonder of life is kind of smashed within the anger about any restrictions whatsoever throughout the 9 months. Like everything these days, there are extremes at war with one another. That's very true.
Yeah, that's really true, because what are you about to say, Julia?
I was just going to jump to an aside, because I also do family constellations, and in family constellations, one can tap into the feelings of people from the past, and including aborted babies from the past. So I've often worked with pregnant women who are having, like they're pregnant, expecting their first baby, having had an abortion, and they're feeling uncomfortable about what they did, as in maybe they shouldn't have a lovely, nice, normal home birth because of ended having ended the life of maybe a 12-week-old baby, embryo, fetus, whatever you would like to call it. However, in the family constellation, we set up in the room a place where that baby would be standing and a place where the woman would be standing. When this pregnant woman goes and stands in the place of this baby that she aborted, there's always so much love, like incredible love, and the look that comes over the face of the pregnant woman is like, oh, like all of her guilt just drains out of her, because in that instant she knows that this being adores her and loves her more than she could possibly imagine, and only wants good for her, and only wants her to have the beautiful birth experience. And then the woman is also able to get the sense that baby was only meant to be there for 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it was, that actually was their choice.
Yeah, so this really speaks of redemption, doesn't it? That it's like everything is open for healing, that there isn't anything kind of finite, that being being a soul embodied in human form, and that we get stuck in these patterns of fear, and that there is so much evil and things going on, but everything is able to be redeemed. And I think, and Marianne, I don't know if you were flagging up, because also in America and in New Zealand, and they were trying to pass this law in the UK as well recently, of full-term abortion, which like shocks me to my core. How could you ever consider doing such a horrific thing? But like in the frame that Julia's just put, then maybe that's okay. But I mean, this is still a moral question, isn't it, Julia? So is it okay, given that you can access this healing and in like a family constellation, and the mother stand in the place of the baby, can you then condone full-term abortion as a practice socially?
I think those kind of things have to be looked at on a soul level between the mother and the father of the baby. I don't think an outside force can make any decision for anybody.
No, but if it's not mandated, but made possible that people can have abortions at full term, do you think? I mean, it's like, what is the crossover? This is two different subjects. One is about healing, and one is about a moral society, isn't it? Do we say, given that we can heal anything, do we say, okay, any kind of evil is okay? Anything that I'm calling evil, it's like, is it okay to do anything?
Well,
torture people?
I mean, that's a debate that could take me way out of my usual sphere of chatting, and probably way out my depth, and I'd probably end up digging myself crazy holes.
But it's important to consider, is it's where do we draw the line at the moment? As Marianne flagged up, there are these, I can't remember exactly how you said it, Marianne, but there are these poles, these opposites, and I've heard a lot of people describing what's going on at the moment. It's like a war between the forces of darkness and light, and that actually that's been going on for eons, for thousands of years, but it's coming to a kind of pitched battle at this moment in time. It's like, is anything justifiable, or should we be standing for the light? Should we be standing for what feels to be moral and good, or not?
You know, maybe what we can do is get more and more people who can actually speak for the unborn baby. Once that becomes more accepted, it may be possible to give a voice to that unborn baby, and that unborn baby may be able to be part of the decision making or part of the negotiating, or at least have their feelings heard.
Yeah, that's very powerful, isn't it? Because where we're going at the moment is a power over system where people can't have any of their feelings. There's no bodily autonomy or no medical autonomy or whatever. It's like it's pushing us towards, like, we have to do what we're told. So now you're bringing in the unborn baby. Like, how in that atmosphere is like you have to do what you're told to do. Where in that space is there a voice for the unborn baby? It's like, this is again the poles, isn't it?
Mm.
So I would advocate for the unborn baby having a voice, and for doing the kind of healing work that we're doing, that this becomes commonplace, that any parents that have found themselves pregnant and they're not ready to be pregnant, or it brings up stresses, could have constellation work so that they could talk to their unborn babies and maybe even like discuss, it's not a good time for you to get born right now. Can we put it off to another time?
I know people who've done that, and usually very often when that's happened, there's a spontaneous miscarriage.
Yeah.
So they didn't even need to go along to the clinic, because they've said what they needed to say, and there's been a sense of completion, and then the two bodies do it without any outside help.
Yeah.
I see a couple more comments out there.
Yes.
So
let's see this one.
Being left in a hospital for 2 months from birth. Whoa. I mean, that's huge. I mean, presumably, Avril, you were in an incubator as well. And I mean, Juliet, you know a lot about what it's like having babies in incubators.
Yeah.
And for a little one to be like in there without human connection, very often they end up becoming like the incubator becomes part of themselves. And then when they move into life, they need something that's almost representative of the incubator.
That's interesting. Yeah, because it's very distressing to not be in contact with your mother at birth, isn't it? That there's profound attachment damage happens when you're taken away at birth. Even that window of Carlton used to say, that 20-minute window immediately after birth is really important for bonding. But there's this real kind of thing that happens in the baby's brain at this point. This attachment process that happens where the eye contact is happening between the mother and the baby, and the skin contact. So have you got anything to say in your experience as midwife, Julia? How do you experience that when you're witnessing it with a baby and a mother?
Well, like the skin contact straight after birth is hugely important, because when a baby is born, both the mother and the baby have got so much adrenaline in their bodies, and the adrenaline is there to help them bond. But without having skin contact, then that doesn't drain away. So then you end up with a baby whose like adrenaline levels are set at a much higher level.
So birth is really, really important. What happens at birth, because it's set in the bonding, it's set in the energy in the nervous system, the functionality of the nervous system. It's set in the immune system because of how much bacteria you manage to pick up from the mother's skin. The microbiome gets set at that point in time. So it's really fundamental if we're thinking about a healthy population as to what happens in the birthing process.
Yes. On many, many levels, soul level, physical level, spiritual level, and also how well supported our mothers are.
Yeah, so I imagine this whole thing at the moment with the restrictions that's happening and women not even being allowed to be with their partners at the time of birth can be very difficult.
Yes, fortunately, it's not so bad in this country, but there are some countries during these COVID restrictions where women have had to give birth without any birth partner, not even a husband there.
Yeah. It's very hard.
Now, there was a question a bit back from Jack asking if an aborted soul ever tries to get born again to the same mother. Well, I know from experience with other people who've been regressed back to their own birth that they've said they've known excuse me, that they were the baby that was miscarried like a couple of years before the mum gave birth to them, and in both instances their mum had never told them that she'd had a miscarriage. So these two people went to their mother and said, did you ever lose a baby before me? And in both cases the mum said, how did you know that? And that's because in their regression work they went back to the miscarriage happening, as in that was them, and then they came back again and got the full term. So there's absolutely no reason at all why that shouldn't happen with a aborted baby.
Absolutely. That's an interesting question, Jack. Do you have any personal experience of that? Or are you just being kind of, what's the word, hypothetical? So there's that question. And then there's this question. Can you read that one?
Oh, yeah, that was just Averil's comment saying, no, that was 1964 when babies were taken away at night. Actually, that reminds me of what got triggered in me during the first lockdown. During the first lockdown, there were lots of food shortages, including some of my favorite foods that I usually have plenty of in the cupboard. And I go to the shelf to get the food, and it's not there. And I'm like, whoa, why am I so activated? Like, why can't I just get a different make and be happy with it? So I did some exploration work with a therapist, and it went right back to being in the nursery, in the hospital nursery, back in like 1957 when there was 4 hourly feeds. The babies were brought out every 4 hours for a breastfeed and then put away. 4 hourly feeding is absolutely not enough for a newborn baby. So it puts babies right into like starvation mode, having to feed really fast, and then high adrenaline levels when they're shut in the nursery. And
feeling like there's not enough.
Yes.
Can then be imprinted in the psychologically for that person. So it's always like, I have to have more and more and more as fast as I can because there's never going to be enough, or it's going to be taken away, or when will that next feed come, even though that it is going to turn up. It's just like a feeling maybe like it's never going to come. I'm going to starve, I'm going to die here in this moment. So that's a possibility. Carlton was also, I'm remembering when we did the fallopian tube journey, like the blastocyst moving down the fallopian tube, and there's 1 week that it's got to get into the womb and implant, but at the same time the blastocyst is growing very rapidly. And is there enough kind of substances in the tube? What do they call it? Fallopian milk or something? Or the
yes.
So the cells are absorbing, aren't they? The kind of elixir that keeps them nourished. As the little blastocyst, like a little blackberry, the cells are growing very rapidly, and as it gets bigger, the inner cells don't absorb, according to Carlton, enough nutrients, and it can lead to this kind of feeling of poor starvation, and possibly to the mindset of there isn't enough food, or perhaps to the whole thing with anorexia? Is that the root of anorexia, or a possible root of it?
There was a guy, I've forgotten his name. He did regressions in a different way to Lake Carlton, and he worked a lot with people with food disorders, either binge eating or anorexia, and every single food disorder went back to that fallopian tube journey.
Wow.
Because the that little blastocyst is either picking up enough food while it's rolling along the fallopian tube, or it's picking up slightly toxic stuff from the mum, or is getting super starving. And by the time that blastocyst is ready to implant, the cells inside are so absolutely starving, hungry, that then as they're implanting, the shock that's already in that little blastocyst can lead to lifelong negative beliefs.
Yeah, and that can recapitulate, can't it? That's an example of, like, that was the initial traumatic event, it was in the fallopian tube, and then maybe there's an issue with implantation, the difficulty of implanting and getting nourishment quickly enough. And then there may be the nursery, as that experience of like being taken from the breast, not being able to feed, or be on 4-hourly feeds or something. Then maybe a problem with anorexia or some other starvation issue later on. So these patterns keep going over and over until consciousness, healing and embodiment can ultimately happen. So that's we're running out of time, Julia. We're running out of time, and I've got to finish promptly. So let's look at the other questions. So can you read this other question? I think we've got a few questions.
Yes, there's quite a few there.
So can you read this one?
Yes, well, it's about having a miscarriage at her daughter having a miscarriage at 12 weeks, and being able to feel the soul of that child very profoundly, and still being able to. In fact, I've heard this a lot from women who have had a miscarriage or an early termination, that the soul of that child, who was only destined for whatever reason to be with them for a short time, almost had more light or more magic or more something. It's almost as though a little angel goes, "Oh, I'm gonna go down to planet Earth for 12 weeks," and they come down, bless the family with their magical energy, and then go back, because they don't need to do a whole lifetime and work through lots of karma.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that sounds very interesting. So I'm rushing through now, so I'm rushing you a bit, Julia. We have this.
I was born in a private hospital, no contact, and apparently I didn't come back on the baby train.
Oh, didn't come back on the baby train. What's the baby train?
Well, someone else will have to answer that.
Yeah, so Avril says, so no bonding. That is a big issue, that people don't necessarily bond at birth with their mothers because of the interference in the birth process. So
Avril later on says she cried so much she had a hernia.
Oh my God, Avril, that's awful.
Mm.
And Jack says,
he was obviously replying to something in the moment, Juliet.
Okay, so sorry about that, Jack. So this is teamwork. I'll click on the comments and you can.
Sometimes the comments come in the moment and don't make sense for us to read through them all right now, Juliet.
But anyway, they're all in a conversation there, so you can see as you look. So we are almost up to time. So just a little explanation, people, which I should have done at the beginning is that we don't have Marion here. You may have noticed her absence. We're really sad she's not here, but we think she might be somewhere in the air at the moment, maybe. I'm not sure if she was flying today or not, but she's off to Mexico for 6 months. And so we're changing the show. It's no longer Elders' Wisdom. We decided in our group that we were going to call this Wisdom from the Council of Elders. And Marion was going to make us a little picture so that we could put that on a little thumbnail. So we've got Marion's picture still on here. Maybe from Mexico, she will send us the correct thumbnail. So the final thing is, who are the Council of Elders? So we are the Council of Elders, and you've met Brigitte, and now you've met Julia, you've met Marion, and there will be some more of us. And we are the elders that have completed the whole of the trauma skills training that I run. And there's the year 1 training, and then the next year 1 training is starting up in October, and there's still some places. So do let us know if you'd like to book onto that. And then from the year 1 training, we go to the advanced training. So Mary and Julia, I'm kind of honoured, really, Julia, that you've come onto my advanced training, given that, you know, we're colleagues and we've worked together many times in running workshops ourselves, and yet you ended up doing my trauma skills training as well, and the advanced one. So that was a great privilege to have you alongside. So after you've gone through all that training and you become trauma informed, and you have a beautiful logo that you can put onto your website to say that you are trauma informed and that you're certified by Healing Earth, that you're a trauma informed practitioner, then you may be invited to join the Council of Elders and may have the possibility of being on one of these calls as being part of that council. But yeah, so that's it. That's how it works, isn't it, Julia?
Yes.
We're making it up as we're going along. We're co-creating this process, and that's where we're at planet Earth at this moment in time. It's like, as these old structures, all this system, all the banking system and all that starts to collapse, and we're building up the new, you know, the new way, giving a voice to the unborn, for instance. That's what we'd like to see. We're co-creating, so we support you and invite you all to co-create your own organizations, your groups, whatever inspires you. So Julia, do you have anything to add to that?
Just to say, and we're bringing elders back to life, putting elders back on the radar, because society has not honoured older men and older women for quite a while.
Yeah, and we need their wisdom. Hence, that's why we call it Elders' Wisdom, because yeah, so if we don't take note of our elders, where are we going? Where is humanity going? So a voice for the elders, a voice for the unborn, a voice for every level of society, and each of us has our own initiatory stages that we pass through that are very, very important for the unfolding wisdom of humanity. So it's lovely. It's been absolutely lovely having you on the call, Julia. So do you think you'll come again?
I'm sure I will, if I'm free at this time. Being very happy to be invited.
Yeah, so you have lots and lots that you can share, not only about birth and pre and perinatal trauma, but constellation work and many, many other beautiful things, and nature and trees and potions, potions and lots of things. Yeah.
Yes.
Elders' wisdom, a lot of elders' wisdom. So thank you everyone for being here, and see you again next Wednesday at 5. 5, as Karen and I say. Yeah. And hopefully we'll get the new thumbnail then, and do share the video, do pass it on. And if you're interested in working with Julia, she does therapy work as well, and all sorts of interesting things. And is it all right to put your contact details underneath this, Julia, or would you rather not?
I'm sure you can find a way. I've zero idea how to do that.
Yeah, so we'll put your contact details. So working with Julia, constellations or birth work or midwifery. You're are we allowed to say anything about who you are?
Yeah, I'm an independent midwife. You better be quick, because who knows how many more years I'll be doing that. But therapy work, that'll keep going until, who knows.
And if you're interested in the trauma skills trainings, the link is underneath here. And if you're interested in any of the other things that Mary and I often talk about, there's masses of links underneath the previous Elders Wisdom course. So do look back. We're at a pressing time in the time of humanity moving forward with what's happening at the moment around the world. So lots of resources there for you. Okay, lots of love.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of love to everyone, and lots of love to Julia. Lovely you being here. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.